folks.
Hi.
Are you on the 1240 tour? Great. My name is Julie, and you're going to get a private tour.
Hello there. This is Brian, Pepper, and Maverick, and welcome to another outdoor adventure. In this part 2 of a 2-part series, we're going to continue exploring the town of Salem, Massachusetts. So let's go ahead and get started by clicking that like button and subscribe for future content. So previously on our outdoor adventure, we were going through the town of Salem and came to the House of Seven Gables. We ended up having an amazing private tour through the House of the Seven Gables and saw some great surprises. And then we reached the 3rd floor of our tour and we took a pause. And from that point, we're about to start up again.
And then this reminds us about our settlement work. We want to keep going with that, of course. The black and white photos are very old. Those go back to like 1910, 1920.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And I learned...
Look at her hat.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And you can't see it, but she's wearing a long skirt.
Oh, I can imagine with that hat
Yeah.
that it's a long skirt.
Yeah, yeah. They gave the little girls activities to work on their fine motor skills because chances are eventually they would leave school and go and work in a factory or a mill. And then the boys were taught a trade, usually carpentry. Very different from what we do now.
Right.
We even, up until the pandemic, we were even doing college prep. We'll probably get back to that. Yeah. And then these kids are obviously a lot younger. We did a program called Caribbean Connections to teach English, but also to let those children know, because nowadays a lot of people come here from the Dominican Republic. So we're letting them know that New England had ties to that island going back a long way. And so I was talking about face not being straight.
Yep.
Just cut the door till it fits.
And this is like our house. It's not old like this, but it's like from the 40s, and I don't think there's a straight angle in the house.
I was gonna say, yeah, I have an angled door.
This is called the Great Chamber. So this is the master bedroom. Notice the ceilings and the size of the windows. That tells us it's going to burn much more wood to heat this room. So when the Turners built this little addition, they were much wealthier than when they started. We like to say they were about what today's 1% would be. That's how much wealthier they were than everybody else. John Turner II was the most successful. He's the one who redecorated with the wood paneling. And when he died, they did an inventory for probate court. And some of those copies are of the inventory. Unfortunately, it's in longhand, so it's very hard to read.
Yeah.
But the thing that was unusual about his inventory
If you had glasses, you could see.
is that it was 14 pages long. The average person's was 1 or 2 pages. We learned a lot when we look at the inventory. We learned how each room was furnished and decorated. We also learned, sadly, the second generation owned enslaved people. We don't know much about them, but we know their names were Rebecca, Titus, Phyllis, Louis, and Jane. The women worked in the house. The men worked out on the property, probably in the warehouses, maybe on the ships. So Massachusetts is known as an abolitionist state. We did abolish slavery very early. I think it was 1793 or 95, way ahead of the Civil War. But there were slaves in New England, just not as many as you think of when you think about the South.
Right.
Then we have the 3rd generation of Turners. This is John Turner III. He lost the family fortune. He was loyal to the king all through the war, which made him very unpopular. He also loved to spend money. So in addition to this great big house, he built himself another house away from the water, which was more fashionable, he lost them both.
Oh.
This house actually went up for auction, and it sold to the Ingersolls, which is why we now call it the Turner-Ingersoll Mansion. When this John Turner died, he lived to be into his 70s. They did the inventory, 2 pages. He lost 12 pages of property, ships, you name it. We don't know exactly what happened. A lot of people ask if he gambled or drank, or we really don't know. We don't have a diary. We don't have letters. We do know that luckily for his children, they married well. So here we have his daughter, Mary Turner Sargent. The Sargents were a wealthy family from Gloucester.
Ah.
And there's a little waterfall, and she's holding a shell.
Mm-hmm.
That's to indicate where the family makes their money, which is on the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look closely above her father's hand, those are ships. So they're just kind of letting you know. This is actually a copy. The original is at the Museum
I was
of
gonna
Fine
ask,
Arts. Yeah. He's the only Turner man we have a painting of. But that's another testament to how he liked to spend his money.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? This is a very busy room. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
But it's
Yes.
this interesting hole
Yes.
with a door.
This is one of the posts. So we call it post and beam construction.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the posts. And when the house was originally built, all of this was exposed.
Mm-hmm.
All of these
Mm-hmm.
looked like this.
Okay.
But then when John Turner II got a hold of it and redecorated, they covered it all up. And boxed in the beams so they could paint them.
Mm-hmm.
You know about post and beam construction, like the barns in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
They make the frame down on the ground and then they raise it. That's how this house was built.
Gotcha.
All right, come on down. Watch your step.
But watch your step. Just so you know, we're getting all the staircases like that. The next house.
Go right in.
Think if we have people over here cut down on drinking. I don't want people to use the stairs.
When we bring school groups through, when we do the 2nd and 3rd graders, I like to ask them what they think this room is. Maybe similar to a room in their house. And so usually they'll say living room, which is correct.
Mhm.
And some of them always end up saying family room, and that's correct too.
Right.
So after a meal, you would come in here to play cards and play music, maybe do some sewing, and certainly they entertained in here.
Mhm.
And you were talking about drinking.
Mhm.
They were Puritans.
Right.
They lived by very strict rules, but there was no rule against getting rich, clearly.
Right.
They thought that if you were wealthy, God favored you.
Mhm.
They also drank alcohol, and behind me is what they called their drinks cupboard. So when they had guests, they would open it up, put out a punch bowl, serve some wine, and probably rum, which they made from the molasses from the West Indies.
Mhm.
Now in the winter time when it gets slow, we all take on little projects. My coworker, Michael, who has worked in museums for many years, did research on this cupboard. We cannot find another cupboard like this. Remember, it was carved by hand,
Mhm.
as old as this one, anywhere in the country. You can find them from the 1700s, not from the 1600s. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning there were 12 or so mansions in New England at this time.
Mhm.
They might have had a cupboard like this, but those houses are gone.
Mhm.
Over on the left, you assume there's another cupboard. There is not. So, the dining room was already there on the other side, and there's a pantry in the way, so they couldn't build another cupboard. But in the Georgian style, you have to have balance.
Right.
So they made a fake door. In the left-hand corner of the fireplace, there is a little latch.
Mhm.
That piece of trim opens to hold wood.
Oh.
You don't need your wood showing.
Yeah.
In the back of the fireplace, do you see that piece of iron? It's called a fireback. Do you recognize the story?
Oh, that's a little Adam and Eve.
It is. That's Adam and Eve. If you look closely, there's a snake wrapped around the trunk of the tree.
That looks like shaking hands with the though. Like, good to meet you. I know. That's
So a
good to meet you.
fireback is there to protect the bricks from getting too hot. Also, it makes the heat bounce back into the room. We have one up in the master bedroom as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then in the front of the room, here's Susanna Ingersoll once again, a little bit later in life. And above the piano is her cousin, Nathaniel Hawthorne. We are very glad that Hawthorne wrote about this house. If he had not written about it, it might not be standing here today. What do you think about the wallpaper?
It's very
bright.
Very festive.
Very busy. Very busy. It's a copy from a house in Ipswich. The Whipples were also wealthy merchants, and the pattern dates around 1720.
Gotcha.
All right, come with me. We're going to go out the front door. All right.
Just like that. Team and keeper.
Notice how it's decorated. Iron nails, which were expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So, a little way of showing off when you come to the door, you know you're visiting a wealthy household. So in a couple of weeks, hello squirrel, in a couple of weeks, when you come on the weekends, we have weddings going on.
There you go. We come in. Everybody drive in.
So these are the three houses that were moved here. And remember in the waiting room we talked about the Hooper Hathaway coming over on logs? That's the one that's straight ahead of us.
Gotcha.
Hello. Hi. And then to the right with the store, that's the Retire Beckett house. That was only about 2 blocks from here. Retire Beckett was an outstanding shipbuilder, and he built the first pleasure yacht in the United States.
Wow.
It was called Cleopatra's Barge, and he made it for the, not sure if it was the Derbies or the Crown and Shields, but another wealthy merchant family. And so we brought that here in the 1920s, and then the red one, that came over in 1958. So I think we're done.
Yep.
But if you'd like to come through, the red house is open. You can walk through it if you'd like.
All right. Yeah. Cool.
Came at a good time. A couple of hours ago, we had buses full of students.
Oh gosh.
You never can tell. Sometimes the students are really interested, especially if their teachers gave them some preparation. And then sometimes they're just hungry and tired. So this house was furthest away from here. It was 6 blocks away on Union Street. Built by Hawthorne's grandparents. He was born in the house the 4th of July, 1804, and then in 1958 was going to be torn down. So we moved it here, and as you can see, it's on a new foundation. You're going into your left. Take your time. You can go up the back stairs and come down the front.
Okay. Cool. Up the stairs or?
Back.
No, thanks.
Yeah, you're
Thanks.
Hi, Mary. Good to have you too.
Oh wow.
Corner.
Oh, perfect.
That's my massive for me. Triangle door. I found some stairs.
Okay.
Ready?
Mm-hmm. Dun, 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 dun.
These are weird again. Weird door. Can't go up these ones, but really can't. There's a ceiling. Look at this carpet. How much carpet?
Mm-hmm.
Flight into Egypt.
Peabody.
Hey, I heard Peabody's down. Ooh, look at the lettering. Sorry. Calligraphy. A selection of works by Julian Hawthorne and various Hawthorne letters. Chinese saucer, sake cup, and a Bristol tea bowl. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
The children were writing. Oh, here's pictures. Yeah, Julian, right. That's gonna be Una, and that's gonna be Rose, and the boy, of course, is Julian. There you go. Imagine trying to feed your child in one of those.
Mm.
There's no front piece.
Nah, you just tied him down.
Thank you. Empire Chest of Jewels. This American Empire Chest of Jewels was owned by Nathaniel Hawthorne and his wife Sophia Peabody Hawthorne while they lived on Malt Street in Salem from 1847 to 1850. There's a picture of a delightful lady back there. A wooden egg cup owned by Nathaniel Hawthorne's sister, Elizabeth. Maybe that's softwood stuff. Here's some works. See, I think I don't. Are you doing time lapse or real voice?
I'm just taking photos.
You're lying. Blinking.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's an interesting question. I'll pick up these ones. Oh, I like how they're painted and then you can see the natural
Oh, yeah.
stick of the wood. Right. Here's another room with a peeking. Oh, I like this thing. We need this. What? It's like the most valuable material in bedrooms. Bed hangings and textiles.
Oh, yeah, honey, I've seen
This is
Scrooge.
a front historical scene. Okay, what can we peek? What's peeking?
Oh, there's just some china.
There's the drying rack.
This is the bathroom.
Well, actually, that is like a hot or something. Forget. Oh, come on, I'm getting you that photo.
I know. It almost looks a little like disturbing or evil in a way. You know, it's like ominous. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. No.
You like? Oh, there you. That's it.
There you go. Some more cast iron cookery for you.
Mm-hmm.
This house is 100 years newer
Mm-hmm.
than the Gables. But for a long time, people would say, gee, they cooked the same way. Nothing changed in 100 years. So I did a little research.
Mm-hmm.
Cast iron stoves were invented in the 1500s in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody could afford one. Because
Oh,
iron was so dear and so hard to work with.
sure.
So after the Industrial Revolution, iron became affordable and they figured out new ways to work with it so people could afford a cast iron stove. And what they would do is block off the fireplace and just, you know,
You put the the flute out. Yeah. That's interesting.
Everybody's favorite playpen.
That's right.
It's not really pack and play though.
Cool.
Definitely important to keep the baby away from the fire.
Oh, yes. Got the bib.
And then on the work table,
Mm-hmm.
that large piece that looks kind of like a jackhammer
Uh-huh.
is for making sausages.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
It is. And it's heavy even without the meat in it. So I'm thinking that probably took 2 people to
Mm.
actually make it work.
That's awesome. Cool. All right. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. As you're leaving,
Mm-hmm.
there are pictures there of the move.
Oh. That's the truck. Oh, look at that. Look at that.
One more.
Oh, yeah. Wow. There he goes. That is so interesting. That'd be pretty rare back then, though, because I don't think they did that a lot back then.
Very nice.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so from here, of course, we exit into the gift shop. That really was an amazing tour, I'll tell you, and I definitely can't recommend it enough. It's probably one of the best things you can do if you're going to visit Salem. So we do our obligatory tour through the gift shop. We make some purchases, aka donations, to the museum and site. And we head out back into the wilds of Salem, Massachusetts. And one last look as we head out. So right across the street from here, there's this candy shop that we visited. And there was a sign, I think Oprah visited here or something like that. And it's a really nice candy shop. Downside is, oh my gosh, the prices are extraordinarily high. So we went around, looked at it, and decided to pass. That being said, there definitely were some temptations in there. So from here, we're walking along Derby Street toward the Salem Maritime National Historical Site. And it's a pretty nice walk. And here it is on our left. There's a lot of historic houses here on the right, of course. So believe it or not, this is actually America's first national historical site. It was established in 1938, and it consists of about 9 acres of land and 12 historical structures along the Salem waterfront. And it's really just relaxing to come out here and just take a break, which is what we did. Gives you a chance to look at the harbor. There's an old ship over there you can see in the background. The ship itself is a replica of a ship from 1797. It's called the Friendship of Salem. You can see it here to the left. And then we start heading back along the historic walk here. There's actually a neat little visitor center as well, which we visited. Lots of little eclectic little items in here too. So I feel like it's overlooked because I think we were the only people that came in here when we visited. But lots of cool little things. Oh, and this actually is a official government-run gift shop too. So lots of official stuff in here. So from here, we start heading down Derby Street. There's lots of little shops along here, coffee shops and bars and restaurants, and of course, so many souvenir shops along here. It's a pretty cool street. We found a little arcade. We went inside. It wasn't really our scene, so we moved on, and we decided to take a quick break at this little coffee shop. Actually, this is a great coffee shop. It was pretty busy, though, even for the off-season. And then from here, we're going to start heading up to more of the historical focused areas. Right up here is a memorial to the victims of the Salem witch trial, and this is the oldest graveyard in Salem, so we decided to go ahead and check it out. So this memorial was erected in 1992 after the planning started in 1986. Obviously as a memorial to the victims of the Salem witch trials. I think the location is really key here too, because it's right outside the oldest cemetery in Salem, where many of the people on the other side of the trials involved were interred, such as the magistrates and whatnot. It's a little somber walking through here, but you can kind of see the, I guess, compassion of the people, leaving gifts at the memorial at each stop. A little eerie is in the middle. They have a tree planted, which is thought to be the same type of tree used for the hangings of the victims. But overall, definitely worth a visit. And of course, if you've read the book associated with this, it really kind of tells the tale. It really hits home too, especially as you go through and see many of the real life characters in the book, such as we just passed John Willard there. And then up here is the memorial for John Proctor. John Proctor was defending his wife from accusations, and as a result, he received accusations of witchcraft, which of course led him to be hanged. And here we have George Jacobs, who was one of the oldest victims at 83. And the saddest part of these witch trials, of course, is the reason behind much of it, which was jealousy among the community, which spurred on the hanging of these innocent people. Of course, this is a recurring theme for centuries before this too, where I think it's estimated that over 10,000 people were hanged for witchcraft throughout Europe over those centuries. This is the dates that they were hung. And I think most of us know the Salem witch trials from The Crucible, which is a play recounting what happened during the trials, but when you research the history, it's so much more extensive, and it's just really, it's the best word, harrowing, I guess you could say, of what people can, believe if left to their own imaginations. And given the age of this graveyard, some of the markers are, for the most part, unreadable or completely worn down as you go through. Obviously, some of the older ones are worn the most. And this graveyard, it operated, I think people were interred here up through the 1800s, with the last one being officially Horace Lorenzo Ingersoll in 1894. And as we go through, as I mentioned, many of the headstones have been damaged over the years. There's a lot of notable people that are buried in this cemetery. Obviously, many notable figures from the Salem witch trials. There's Nathanial Mather, who was the son of Increase Mather and the brother of Cotton Mather. Judge John Hawthorne is interred here. Mary Corey, the second wife accused of the accused witch, Giles Corey, died in 1684 and was buried toward the back left. Mayflower passenger Captain Richard Moore was interred here. Governor Simon Bradstreet was interred here as well too. Reverend John Higgins, Reverend Nicholas Noyes, assistant minister during the Salem witch trials, was interred here. And contrary to popular belief, though, none of the convicted witches were buried in the cemetery. And as I mentioned earlier, convicted witches were not allowed a Christian burial. And it's not known what exactly happened to their bodies. Though many were claimed by their families and buried on their own private property. Which again is fitting to have the memorial along here. Is had they not been falsely accused and convicted of witchcraft, they most likely would have been interred here. And overall, it's just a nice stroll through the graveyard here, which I guess sounds a little harrowing when I say that. But, you know, I don't think a lot of people that know that burial sites were a convening ground for a lot of people. And back in the day, I don't think it became as, how should I say, eerie? I'm not sure that's the best word for it. Until more recently, of course. But people would come to cemeteries as a place to celebrate and obviously memorialize those that they had known and had passed. And it didn't take on the as somber a tone as it does now, I believe. In fact, it was commonplace for quite a while to have picnics within a graveyard as well, too. As these are one of the few open public areas where you could convene back in the day. Just keep in mind, obviously, that, you know, up until the last 150 years, open, well-kept lawns like this were a relative novelty and really only kept by the wealthy, because you had to maintain these. So it was a little bit different culture back then, of course. And as we make our way out of here, we're going to head back into the main area here. And just, of course, like any historical town, there's a lot of commercialization. There's a bunch of shops for witchcraft and so on and so forth, which is kind of ironic when you really think about it. That Salem is notable for many reasons, but obviously the most famous is because of the Crucible and the Salem witch trials, at least today, and also the House of Seven Gables too, which is obviously a huge draw for this town, I guess, / small city. I'm not sure who this gentleman is here. I think he just takes donations. But this whole area, is awesome as it is, of course, has a lot of tourist trappy stuff around it. But just north here is the Essex Museum, Peabody Essex Museum, which I've been to before. We did not visit this trip, but we'll probably stop there next time. It's definitely worth a visit. There's quite a bit to see in here. And this is Charter Street, which we're coming up here. We make a left. And we follow this, I believe it's to Front Street where it connects here. And what's neat about this takes you to an open market, which is, at this point, off-season, mostly closed. But if you come here during the summer, there are so many activities happening down this street. Definitely worth a visit, especially during season. And this brings you to the fun street of Essex. One of the best spots I recommend is going to Count Otto's Nightmare Gallery. We had so much fun here. Oh, do I need a mask?
Huh?
No. Oh, yeah.
Welcome you here to the museum. We just have two very simple rules for you to start. The first is understood displays is that we're not that sheet.
Yeah, but I definitely can't recommend this highly enough. It was definitely a fun little tour. And then we just finish up our quick tour here after our quick visit of the shop, and at this point we are heading back out into Essex. And Essex is a fun street to come down to in Salem. It's a little slow right now, but there's so many different shops with so many different items that you see throughout here. Definitely quite a bit of fun. From there, we make our way into the store Omen, which had some interesting figurines throughout this shop. And what's interesting too is a lot of these shops on Essex actually connect to the mall, which is inside here. And like a lot of malls, it is definitely in decline from its heydays, but still a lot of stuff in here. There's actually a movie theater in here too if you want to catch a flick. It's a good area if you need to use a public restroom as well too, which can be hard to find in towns like this. There's a lot of little shops. We visited one that I think was a shop focusing on Buddhism, and then right across the way from there was this interesting little comic book shop, which had some interesting collectibles as well too, if you're into that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the mall is past its prime. But if you're looking to cool down, especially in the summer months or whatnot, it's not too bad. So we make our way back into Essex. We're heading down, looking for something to eat. And just as we're coming down, we found this. Oh, this is another shop. This was a Harry Potter shop. Lots of little Harry Potter stuff in there. And we ended up settling on the Tavern, which is in the Hawthorne Hotel. And I could not recommend this place enough. Oh my gosh, the food was incredible. The decor was a combination of classy yet very comfy and relaxed. Food was fantastic, though a little bit pricey. But we definitely finished off the day great at this little restaurant. So anyway, we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click like and subscribe for future content. It really does help out the channel. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. We do try to release as often as we can. This is going to finish up our first part of our seaside visit of Massachusetts, and we hope you do enjoy it. And we hope to see you in future videos. But until then, get out there and make your own great outdoor adventure. And as always, take care.